very popular light mech, the Commando. It has just the right balance of mobility and punch to do some real damage, considering just how light and inexpensive it is for battle value and tonnage. Lore-wise, after the creation of the Steiner-Davian Alliance in the 3030s, this became like the standard mech of the Steiner-Davian Alliance for light scouts, other than the Atlas, of course. It's one of the older mechs that's in the original 3025 TRO, and it's also a Battletech original artwork, not one of those arts from the Unseens that were borrowed from animes. So this is a Battletech only artwork. So one of the first mechs that was fully IP okay. So anyway, it's a very popular mech. Then of course, when the clans were invented in the early 90s and the 3050 TRO came out, then of course there was again a update to the Commando from the 2D, which was like the standard vanilla Commando, into the version in here, and it should be coming up right here. Here it is. It's the 5S, and it's got endosteel and ferrofibrous, if I remember correctly. Lore-wise, the COM2D continued to be constructed even after the COM5S came out with all the Helm memory core upgrades. And it gets a lot of action. There are a lot of variants of the Commando, but some variants are of note and are worth kind of looking a little closer and analyzing. And well, here I've got spec sheets. I've got spec sheets for some of the Commandos, like the COM3A here. It just has a flamer and medium laser and SRM6s. And otherwise, it's kind of a standard style armor distribution. This one's a more futuristic Commando, the COM7S. This one, 3060s age. So it's got streak SRMs, ER medium lasers, and a standard SRM4 still. So it still has the feel of a Commando because it's got lots of SRMs and a medium laser. The main features of a Commando are that it is a light scout, but it's supposed to have enough punch to actually double as like a little mini missile platform if the going gets tough. So now let's talk through the specs of the standard vanilla COM2D. It's got a reasonable armor distribution, 64 armor points. It's got its SRM6, medium laser, SRM4, and then it's got 2 tons left for ammo. Now I'm going to get into the detailed combat performance. So multi means against multi-element forces, and pretty much it always loses because it's a light mech. Clan means against clan mechs, and it pretty much always loses, except every once in a while it gets lucky against a fire moth or something. That's why it wins 5, loses 64. Against infantry, it always won 42 battles, never lost a battle. Against VTOLs, it won most of the time because its SRMs do pretty good. It loses and ties probably against like warriors or something. Against small mechs, it does pretty well. It wins about half the time. Wins 41, lose 39, tie 18. When I say small mech, that's not light mechs. That's actually including some of the smaller mediums. So the Commando really does punch above its weight, being that it's only a 25-ton mech. Against mid-sized mechs, which are basically the upper end of medium to the lower end of heavy, it almost always loses because, well, no surprise, it's going up against massively more powerful mechs than itself. Against vehicles, it does similarly. And obviously against large mechs, which basically are the upper end of heavy and all assault mechs, it almost always loses. Maybe you get some lucky back shot every once in a while or something. And against large vehicles, which are things like demolishers and stuff like that, almost always loses too, but its SRMs give it some lucky kills every once in a while. So how do you actually calculate the battle value of a mech? Well, here we're going to look at the Commando, the 2D. So we start off with the armor. The armor, standard armor, just by points, it translates into battle value. So the armor for the Commando has 160 battle value. Then the internal structure also has a certain constant based on how much it is. So it translates into 64.5 for the internal structure of the Commando. And all 25, basically all 25-ton mechs have the same internal structure. So that's like a constant for that size. And the gyro, there's a standard factor, assuming it's a normal gyro, so it's a 12.5 battle factor. Then there's the how many ammo slots do you have? So I have 2 ammo slots, so it's 30 points. So that's done there. Now we have to add any miscellaneous equipment, which we don't have any, so it's 0. So that gives us a defensive battle rating pre-speed factor of 289.8. Then based on your movement modifier, your maximum move modifier, you get this 1.4 multiplier. So therefore you go, that gets multiplied there. Then you would need to next calculate your offensive battle value. So that's basically, that was after the 1.4 multiplier, that 289.8 for the defensive battle rating. Okay, for offensive battle value, you now have to add up the battle value of all your weapons, just sum them up as a raw sum. Also add your ammo. And if any of them are rear facing, make those the battle value of the weapon equal to half, but not the ammo, only the weapon. Next, you have to find something called the heat efficiency. So basically the heat efficiency is a strange formula of 6 plus your heat sinks minus your max movement heat. And then you have to find your total alpha strike weapon heat and then modify your battle value of your weapons. Now there's a strange algorithm that was created initially that involves sorting your weapons and removing weapons after you exceed your heat sinks. But I'm going to ignore that and do something that's close enough that it's acceptable. I just take my approximate ratio of alpha strike to the heat sinks to alpha strike, and that's a 0.911. So I call that the alpha heat loss. And then I just multiply that by my weapons battle value to get the modified battle value based on not having enough heat sinks. So after multiplying those together, the 144 drops to 131.29. Then we also have to add the tonnage because you want to simulate charging and kicking and punching. So that's given in as, and weapon battle rating is 161 now. There's like a factor for tonnage. It's not just tonnage, it's like a factor. Now, we need the speed factor input. It's basically run plus half your jump, that's 9. Then we have to look it up in this factor table, which I can't show here because it's like a weird table, but it's basically 1.5 for the Commando. Then you get your final weapon battle rating, which is 161.3 here for the Commando according to my calculation. Then this 161.3 has to be multiplied by the 1.5 to get your final offensive battle value. Then you sum your defensive, which is 289.8, and the offensive, which is 241.9, and you get the final battle value of 531.7. Now, I'm off slightly from the official battle value by 9 points, but that's kind of a small error, I believe. So the difference comes mostly from the fact that I'm not doing their strange sorting algorithm to figure out what it is. But if you just do this calculation, you can get pretty close to the official battle value, although sometimes you're off. So battle value calculations are extremely annoying and difficult to do. But here I kind of just talked through one quickly. I'm having the computer do it for me because it's just too much of a pain. You're better off just kind of looking up variants in Sarna. But if you're making a custom mod, then you have to go through this routine to figure out what the battle value is. So if you really want to learn about it, you can find the right source materials and the official printouts and find out what the latest formulas are. They keep changing them. Sometimes there used to be combat value, then there was battle value 1, then battle value 2. Now there's like battle value 2.1 out there, and it keeps changing. Okay, so now let's look at the combat performance. So COM2D wins 25%, so does the COM1B and the COM1D. They're not that far apart, at least these variants here that I've shown, and they're all relatively inexpensive battle value wise. And you can see that the weapons profile is a bit different on them, though. These later variants have much longer range weapons, and whereas the originals are just medium laser style. Perhaps the main one of note that's different is the COM1C. Notice how it only wins 21% and it loses only 41% and ties 36%. I think that's because it's got long-range weapons, and basically if it runs out of ammo, it runs off, or so it has a higher chance of tying versus the ones that have to get close. The ones that have to go for medium lasers cannot escape. That's why they have a very high rate of losing and low rate of tie, because they can't escape with their medium laser. Once you're in, you're in. You will fight to the death. It was kind of tricky finding some of the specs and data on some of these. Like the COM1AK, it turns out that in order to figure out what it has, you have to look up the Mackie and realize it has a 5-ton cockpit because it's got primitive parts. So since I didn't have the actual spec sheet for it, I had to create a spec sheet for it by computer analysis. And it's got primitive armor, primitive engine, and primitive cockpit. But it still performs pretty well and has a good battle value. As far as the best battle value win fraction, it's either the standard COM2D or the COM1C. But then when it comes to C-bill value, the COM1B is the best with 0.14 wins per mega C-bill. But the COM2D, the standard one, is pretty good too, 0.138, pretty close. And the other ones are all slightly worse. And so, but none of them are really far out there as far as the other ones are concerned, so you're probably safe to play whichever one you want, and just based on your personal taste, because they're not significantly different from each other in their wins per ton. I mean, maybe the COM2D and the COM1B also perform well as wins per ton. So if you really want a slight improve performance per metric, then those would be the ones to focus on. But none of these are really standing out as being that different that you would want to shy away from them if you like the design.